Hi, welcome to today's community chat. We're going to be speaking with Lynne Finding from Link of Hampton Roads. They're in their 32nd year this year, and thank you, Lynne, for.
Thank you for having me today.
Um, Let me just make sure that we have people tuning in on Facebook. We're also playing on YouTube, and we're playing on the wavy.com website. So everyone can tune in there, and please, follow along the conversation and place your questions in the chat if you have any. For Lynne, I know that we'll be happy to answer them through the chat as we go. So if you can just, place your questions there, and we will just, get started then. So let me pull up our main screen here.
Sure. Yeah, we started in downtown Newport News in 1990, and it was really formed initially, Sarah, to work with people that were living in downtown Newport News. And then we saw an influx of people in 1995 begin to move from downtown to different areas of Newport News. So we eventually purchased a building in Midtown and moved up to Hilton Village, and we see a broader spectrum of people here. We were formed to work with people that live at or below the poverty level, those that are homeless, those that are elderly, disabled, veterans, etc. And initially, we started out providing food, clothing, furniture, and household items. We still do those same programs today, but on a larger scale, obviously, because population has grown, and with the current climate, the needs are growing as well, of course. And not anymore. It used to be Sarah, be Hampton, Newport News, but now it's all of the peninsula, south side. We've got people from Gloucester, Richmond, Virginia Beach coming to us for different services, but primarily for the shelter service right now that we're running. But there are people that come in for food or clothing or whatever it is that we have going on here. There are so many agencies around the community right now trying to reach out to people, but like I say, the increase in persons in need is growing. So it's kind of good that we are replicating services a little bit more now. Sure. So the numbers that are increasing. I mean, I gather numbers every week for the last 19 years, and I do a comparison of these. We monitor what's going on. What we've seen as of yesterday, when we moved shelter yesterday, is a 35% increase in people versus last year and any other year that we've seen. We're seeing up to 105 people a night. Last year we saw 28 families in the whole 20-week season that we run for. This year we've already seen 29 families through the shelter program. So the need is there. It's really sad though now, I think, for me anyway, it breaks my heart to see so many older people or persons with disabilities that are homeless. Primarily, I think that it's due to the moratorium didn't help us, I think, in some ways, in some respects, because what's happening now, the landlords are increasing rents. So a lot of people that were living on fixed incomes can't afford the rents that the landlords are now charging. And it's not solely because of the landlords, obviously. There's a housing shortage nationally. It's not just a local problem, it's a national problem. So I think this is where we're challenged a little bit with resources. I mean, we can house and shelter the people right now for the 20 weeks through March, but then what happens to them after that? When we're seeing a consistent number of people, in the 90s to 100s, where do they go? And that's a concern for me and for other providers, obviously on the peninsula, and I think nationally as well. There's a Mayors and Chairs Commission on Homelessness here, where all of the jurisdictions meet together and talk about. There's also the Greater Virginia Peninsula Continuum of Care. That's also a venue where providers meet and we network to try and figure out, what the next step is. I mean, we kind of knew earlier this year, or last year, actually, I should say now, that this was going to happen at some point. There was going to be this influx of people. We were actually expecting more, but I think we're managing right now, and I think the conversations are ongoing with regard to. So yeah, it's really cool actually. It's a low barrier shelter, so people have mats that they sleep on the floor and provided blankets and mat covers. When they come to the door, we do a screening with them, a medical screening, and ask them if they have any problems. We do a temperature check with them, and they're screened with security to make sure that they're not bringing in any weapons or anything like that. And then once they're processed in, we do an intake on them, and what we try and do is gather information that goes into a homeless management information system, where we can pull that information to try and find referrals and resources for them if there's specific disabilities. For example, we have people coming in with dementia, we have people that are newly released from hospitals, we have people that have cancer that are not being treated. These people, we try and work with social services and other agencies to get them pushed to so that their medical issues are sorted and assisted. Families with children, we work with Department of Human Services, Newport News Department of Human Services, on a regular basis, nightly, and they assist us with finding resources for the families that come in. So with children, so we see all age ranges. So we deal with people with 2-week-old babies on up to 88. We think we've got an 85-year-old in right now.
I had a little bit of a message in the chat, so just wanted to check on that. The one thing I guess I wanted to ask and highlight, for you all is, I know that there are so many organizations that, maybe do not let in certain people, whether it is a drug problem, whether it is, a history of criminal history or so forth, but you all don't have those, limitations, really. You do welcome your doors to everyone.
I mean, we're low barrier, and that's exactly what low
Mm-hmm.
barrier. If somebody is violent in the shelter, then they might not be allowed to come back in again. If they're threatening or hurting somebody else, then they might not be allowed to come back in again for maybe a week or something. Or if it's a really violent incident, then they might be put out for the season. But other than that, I mean, most of the time we don't really have a whole lot of problems there. It's not that we don't have people with problems, we do, but we don't tend to find a lot of issues that come up. I mean, security are awesome, and Newport News Sheriff's Office is absolutely fantastic. They've been working with us now for 15 plus years, and they know the folks when they're coming in. This is not prison. It's just we're trying to keep everybody safe, the volunteers, the staff, and the guests themselves.
Absolutely. And, in this shelter, and you've discussed it, but do you all sort of take an inventory of who needs help, in different ways that do arrive to the shelter? Do you all sort of take stock of if somebody needs more long-term help, or if you guys can offer them services of some sort? Is that a relationship that can continue, depending on the person that arrives to the shelter?
Sure. So if it's families, like I said earlier, we talk to Newport News Department of Human Services on a basis. So the people are put into the system that night, and then they engage with the social worker with Department of Human Services the next day. If there's somebody medically fragile or elderly that we feel like needs assistance, then we call Adult Protective Services, and then they're seen at the next day at Four Oaks Day Support Center. So it's an ongoing situation of exchange of resources, basically, and making sure that these people are taken care of. basically. And there's communication between the agencies, and also with the departments of human services, the adult protective services, to ensure that there is some place other than the shelter for them to be placed if it's applicable.
Right. The one other piece of this, and it's one of the options on your website when you go in and people are looking for help, is mental health is also listed as a reason to come to you all, and we know that it is a big piece for some people and playing into homelessness. Can you just talk about how you all in the shelter and then your other services sort of welcome those who you might have mental illness or mental health issues?
So mentally ill people obviously come in on a regular basis, as do many people that are physically disabled as well. With the mental health, the Hampton Newport News Community Services Board comes to the shelter twice a week. We also work with the Veterans Administration for veterans if there's mental health issues. So there's a lot of resource and networking going on. So they're engaged at the shelter site, and then followed up during the daytime hours. When they leave the shelter in the morning, then they go on to Four Oaks, where the VA or the CSB will meet with them and schedule appointments for them, etc., and engage them further.
And then at your port shelter, in terms of children, that come in with families, and it seems from your other resources too, which we can get into, do you all really have a goal, in sort of keeping that family unit, together if they come to your shelter, if they come to you, to ask for resources, continuing nights? Is that a big, value for you all?
Absolutely, Sarah. I mean, I think the fear is a lot of times with homeless people is that if there's children involved, that the city is going to take the children away from them. That is not true. That has never been true. It's always, the goal is to always keep the families together. We network with the Newport News School Division or any other jurisdiction. So, for example, if somebody comes from Hampton or Gloucester, even, we network with the school division so that the McKinney Vinto Act is put into place for the children, so that the school bus will come and pick them up and take them to the school where they still go to school. Continuity for them while they're in the shelter site, whether they're with us or whether they're with another local program.
That's great. So you're sort of continuing that, structure, even if they come to you all, the school bus will still take them to school. It'll still be a part of the family.
Absolutely. It's very rare. I can think of maybe one instance in where a family has been separated, and that was a particularly bad situation. But no, we've never had that before. I mean, usually folks are moved on to housing or supported into finding employment and then subsequently housing. So yeah, great programs out here too. But
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Numbers are overwhelming right now.
And I guess I have a question, about the port shelter, especially since the temperatures dropped, on just to unimaginable levels, 2 weeks ago now. And I know there is a need, obviously, on nights where, the temperature is warmer, but, elements are still very important. It's still important to have, resources for everyone. But can you talk about maybe over that holiday period, maybe what you all found, especially the temperatures? I think it felt like, close to 0 degrees in some places in the area.
What we actually ended up doing was we tried to open the shelter a little bit earlier, because we're not just running one shelter, we're actually running two every because of the number situation. So we opened a little bit earlier. We had a tent with heat inside that people were able to congregate in or shelter in while we were processing people into the door, into the actual shelter itself. And then every night, regardless of whether it's cold or not, we give out clothing, but we kicked up the distribution of coats and sweaters on those particular cold nights. So there was that continuity of support for our guests, and hot meals, etc. The hot meals are provided every night though, and hot drinks, etc.
Right. And then do you all find you have enough of those supplies to pass around night after night, or is that no? Yeah.
Never enough. I mean, bombers are great. We got 2,000 socks at the beginning of the year, but we're already through those, and the community is really responsive when we put an email out or Facebook out. But yeah, we're always looking for men's jeans. Men's in particular, it's interesting actually, because the women will wear the men's clothing mainly because they can layer. Obviously, we take women's clothing as well and distribute that. But men's clothing, we're always in need of coats, sweaters, jeans, socks, and sometimes gently used underwear. Sometimes we buy underwear that's too big for us or too small for us, and if you have no need for it and it's gently used, then please think about passing it on to us. Shoes, boots. We try not to give out sneakers because when it's wet or cold, it doesn't. But the boots and the heavy shoes, then we try and distribute those out to folks as well. Hats, gloves, scarves, all of those things. We go through them very quickly when we're given them.
Right. And, is there a place, is that your headquarters, that is a great place to sort of go and donate any of these items?
Sure. People drop them off here at the Link Building at 10413 Warwick Boulevard, or otherwise they actually some people will drop them off to the churches directly for us, the church sites, which is kind of cool.
And, in terms of volunteering, which this sort of leads into, people can volunteer time, people can donate, money and their time, I guess. But in terms of, volunteering, are there possibilities, whether it's in the shelter, whether it's at your office, are there places for people that, that want to volunteer and want to help out? They can go to you. What are sort of the options there?
There's always a need for volunteers. So we have a barn in Hampton that we keep our furniture and household items in, and we keep our shelter equipment there as well. That always needs to be sorted and organized. So we generally look for people that are kind of strong to help us with that and organized. We have volunteers that come in here to pack food bags for us or to help us keep the clothing closet sorted and maintained. We have to inventory everything that comes through here. We have loads of running to do up and down to the sites, with short, for things that we're short of. One of the other things that we do for as well, Sarah, is diapers, adult diapers and kids diapers. But, we have people networking out in the field for that. Port shelter, we like volunteers to come in groups. That's really helpful to us right now. And particularly, I think at the end of March, my board, actually, I've talked them into doing one night of service at the end of March. They've already done one in November. They're going to do another one in March where they cook a meal and then they'll help us do registration and they'll help the guests bag their and that really is kind of key. If we can get like 9 or 10 people in a group, like a small business or something like that, to come and volunteer, that would be awesome. If somebody would like to give me a call, and this can be on a regular basis, of course, as well. Each year we do this shelter program, and every year we're running short of the older volunteers that have been doing it now for 30 years plus. So we'd like some new people to come in and help us. That would be awesome.
And, those people that come in and help, do you all need help overnight in a variety of different ways, or is that primarily when people are coming into the shelter?
No, so it used to be that we had volunteers that helped us overnight, that stayed with us overnight and assisted. Now we've increased staffing, so we have staffing overnight and security overnight as well. So it's usually quiet at night. We don't generally have volunteers through the evening hours and through the overnight hours. I'm sorry. They come in usually about 4:30. If they're going to volunteer, they come in about 4:30 a.m. They help us get the guests out of the shelter in the morning, get them up, get them out, get their bedding and things sorted. Because every morning our cleaning crew comes in and does a deep clean. They do a CDC deep clean, and take the laundry, get it washed down at the Newport News jail, and then bring clean stuff back for the next night. So it's
And I mean, so, on the long lines of what you just said, you obviously all clean the spaces, before the next guests come in the morning. But just so everyone knows that, viewing, are they, how many repeat visitors do you all have, to the shelter? Do people seem to come in and know about the resource and have the ability to come back night after night after night?
Yeah, I mean, people come back night after night after night. A lot of times what happens if they're on Social Security or they're getting some retirement income or even working but don't have enough to rent a house or an apartment, they'll come in until they're paid, and then they'll go get a hotel for a couple of nights, and then they'll come back in again when their money runs out, which is fine. I mean, we've got people that have no income that come in every single night. You know, we don't judge how long they stay. We try and find them housing, obviously, if we can. Like I said earlier, you know, it's really difficult with this situation with the housing shortage now to find anything that's really affordable for people.
Absolutely. And do you find that cities do they come to you and say, you know, we do have this affordable housing available? Or how do you all come across, you know, some of those long-term options?
The long-term options, really, we have a program in-house, or two programs, provide veterans transitional housing for homeless persons with disabilities. Both of the Veterans Administration assigns people to our transitional housing program, and coordinated entry system through the homeless hotline refers people both to the homeless shelter, to Port Shelter, and also to our housing program. So I hope that answers your question,
Yes,
Sarah.
yes, it did. And then, you know, that carries us into, you know, I did want to talk about, you know, the veterans housing program that you all have. Can you just speak to sort of how you all do work with the veteran community in this area?
Yeah, so it's very broad, actually. We've been working with the VA since 2009 with this program that we do. We have two houses in Newport News. We house a total of 7 veterans, male veterans, at any one time, and they come in, and we reduce their barriers, meaning we find ID for them in order for them to get jobs, or to get their income reinstated, or to file for disability, or whatever it needs to be while they're with us. And then, you know, we're stabilizing their diet and reintegrating them into community activities. All of this is important for them. And during that time that they're with us, they're required to save 75% of their income, because we pay for everything. We pay for their food. They have TVs in their bedrooms. They have their own bedrooms, etc. They have the run of the houses that they're in, and then we provide them with transportation to and from their activities, their medical activities. They're free to do whatever they want to do, you know, if they do recreational things on their own. And then when they're ready to move out, we assist them in finding housing, community housing for them. So it used to be 90 days. It's taken us a little bit longer now, obviously, because of the shortage of stock. But that's basically what happens now. On the other hand, with the CanLink folks, they're referred to. So these are people that come into the Port Shelter or any other shelters in the community. They're referred through the coordinated entry system for permanent supportive housing. So there's a group of people that decide that their illness or their disabilities require permanent supportive housing, which means that they're case managed. And when they're referred to us, we do an intake with them, and then we help them find a house, and then we pay for the rent if they have no income at all. If they have income, they pay up to 30% of their income towards their rent and utilities. And that's a pretty quick process. Usually we have people referred and housed within about 3 to 4 weeks now.
Wow.
Used to be within a couple of days, but with we're having to hustle a little bit more. But still not a bad time frame.
Right. And then, you know, with that program, and I think I've seen this in another clip that you'll have probably on your YouTube, is that you talked about how, or I think you or your colleague spoke about how you all do sign a lease, I believe, you know, with some of them, because I know that is a big issue and obstacle for a lot of people is that lease, and if people are going to let them actually, you know, let them stay in the property, you know, whatever that may be. So can you talk a little bit about that process?
With the vets, they have a VASH voucher, so that's kind of the VA pays for their deposits and everything. And it runs the same way as the CanLink program. With the CanLink program, we go on the leases with the client, so we are the first named on there with the client, and then we pay the predominance of the rent for them. So there is deposits that have to be paid, and if you know if they've not paid rent in the past and they've got a judgment or something, then sometimes we're charged double deposits in order for them to be given a second chance. But you know, that program CanLink is one of the top programs on the peninsula here. in serving all disabilities and all people, veterans, ex-offenders, etc. And I think it's having us on the lease, that the landlords get that the comfort, I guess, of knowing who we are. We've worked with them for a long time, since 2004, many of them, and they just kind of roll over. When one client moves out or dies, then oftentimes they'll re-rent to us because they know that we're consistent with our supportive services that we provide to each of these clients.
Right. And then you mentioned like the 3 to 4 weeks right now. Is there a pretty long wait list for people that need, housing services right now? Or what would you say to somebody, listening to us right now that, needs to find a place to stay and wants to work with you all?
It is really difficult because our vacancies are very few and far between. It's usually when we have a death in the family, in the household, that we have a vacancy. And I think we had maybe 3 deaths last year. So I think we're just filling the final one right now, the final slot that we have right now. And this person moves in next week. So it's really difficult to get on board with our program. But I would say to anybody that's in this situation, get yourselves on the Section 8 list or the public housing list. It's a long waiting list, but that's an alternative to the PSH program. And if you become homeless and are chronically homeless as an individual, then make yourself known to your jurisdictions wherever you are, to request rapid rehousing assistance if you have the income to support an apartment or a room, etc.
Right. And, I have someone in the chat is talking about, calling the crisis housing hotline and, trying to sort of get recommendations on finding, permanent housing. So I think, what you just said, it is obviously a difficult time, but for someone that, is in a situation where they, are living in a motel or living, on the street or temporarily living with family, but, that might only last for a few days, is it something where they at least could call and get on your waiting list, or
It's like I said earlier, Sarah. It's done by referral. So
right. Oh, it's done by fall. Okay. Yes.
So they have to have some form of income or engage with, like for Newport News, it would be Four Oaks. In Hampton, it would be Hampton Social Services or the Help agency, and they do applications there for rapid for permanent supportive housing. Again, it would be these agencies that would screen and decide whether they would be put forward into the coordinated entry system and then suggested for permanent supportive housing. Once we get a vacancy, we go to them and say, we have a vacancy, send the next person on the list. I honestly don't know how long that list is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then for some people that need to supplement, food or clothing or furniture or things like that, could you just speak to a little bit about some of those emergency services, resources, and what you all have available at your office, space?
We have clothing here. Anybody can come in for clothing. We have children's clothing, babies' clothing, adults, men's and women's clothing. Anybody can come in at any time and get up to 5 outfits. For food distribution, we do a once a week service for anybody who's in need of food. And we serve frozen foods, frozen meats, and whatever we can get donated to us, or we can purchase from the food bank, canned, dried foods as well, to augment the meats that we give out. And like I say, they most people will come in once a week or maybe twice a month. It depends on what their need is. If they're homeless, they'll come in once a week. If they have a place, then it's usually once every couple of weeks or once a month they might come in to supplement their food stamps.
Right. And then the one thing I wanted to ask you is, you all, through other stories and also on your website as well, do speak to people that have used Link, used it for either some sort of service or housing, and then now are working with Link. Could you just talk about, you know, how, I don't know, how people sort of have used it and then go back, and you guys obviously have lifted those people up, to now either be working with you all or serving others. Could you just, talk about some of that stability that you all sort of offer or help them find?
Or I mean, I can actually I think about right now a couple of people that have worked here at Link actually. And one of the men, Alex, he's been here since he started in the shelter I think in 1991 or 92 in the Canling program. He was housed about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now. But he comes every day to help us out in the shelter. He actually is paid a stipend now through AARP, which is a partnership we have with the AARP program. So he's paid a little bit of money for doing 18 hours a week, I think it is. And he helps with the distribution of clothing and food, and he picks up items that people donate to us. That's just one. Renee is another one who's on our website. She's been with us for about 8 years. She too was in the shelter program, has been very sick during her time, but comes and volunteers and supports the program director planning program, or helps with the Christmas events that we do. Depends on her,
Right.
her wellness happening at the time. Yeah. And we've had families that have come through the shelter that have come into Canning, and actually the three that I can think of that have purchase their own places, which is kind of cool. They've been able to get on their feet, find a job. We have two formerly homeless people that are in the Canning program that actually are on our board now. One of them came from the drug court, an amazing man, young man. He wasn't working when he came to us. We housed him. He started up his own side business of doing garden maintenance and bought his own equipment gradually, and he now works for one of the cities here locally. Just doing really well. Good guy, really good guy. Very appreciative of the hand up, and we're very appreciative of him and what he's paying forward and giving back.
And do you think that's like a testament to, you all do try to help the individual in really multiple areas of their life, not just, offering, a stay for a night, but you all really do, it seems, take time to help them with, housing and then jobs. I know that there's even an offering on your website, to find jobs now, a job listing, tab that you guys can pull down. But, is that part of the mission too, is sort of helping, every part of the life of somebody that comes in?
It really is, and I think over the years I've been the medical power of attorney for two or three of our Catholic people that have not had any other family members, and I've been with them when they passed away. We don't just kind of leave them in the hospital and or wherever at home on their own. We mentor them throughout that process. So yeah, we stay with them when they're dying as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's really really important. I mean, I've given you an overview of the programs today, but there are so many intricacies when you're caring for a person of what their needs are and the challenges that they find, whether it's writing or filling out forms or applying for things, or even working with families or trying to reintegrate with families or come to terms with history, our own history of where we've been and things like that. And it's not, we don't use our collaborative partners because we do, but we're a family here. This is how this agency has been run really for the 30 years that I've been here, 32 years that I've been here, that we've tried to run this as a family, if you will, where we support one another and we want them to go on, to push them on. Just as we do our kids, we want the best for our kids. We want the best for the people that we work with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great to hear about, and I've spoken with some other agencies where they've talked about focusing on the individual as well. And I mean, there are benefits to group housing, but it seems that you all do focus on, the individual family or unit or person, and, sort of help them on their journey, because everyone, is different. They have different needs in their daily life. They have different needs in their jobs that they are looking for, and so forth. So, I think, would you all say like that individual focus sort of, sets you all apart sort of in that mission, or?
I don't know. I think we're just dedicated to being supportive of our people, and
Hmm.
all of us in the nonprofit world are kind of dedicated in different ways. And I think we've just been fortunate to have a family here at Link where we've come across situations and opportunities that we've been able to take advantage of for our clients, and we've done it. And I think about, we had a family of 5 years ago that came from, there was a tragedy in I don't know, there was a flood in another state, and they came here to us, and we took this family in of 5, and 3 of them went into the military. 3 of the kids went into the military. I mean, they were little when they came here, but they've all grown up and given back. One of them got a scholarship to an art studio. Was actually painting on sidewalks and buildings and stuff, doing things illegally, but the I think it was the sheriff, actually, Gabe Morgan, took him under his wing, and he got a scholarship for a college a university in Richmond. So these are just one off things that come up, but people take advantage of them, and it changes their life forever,
Right.
really.
Um, and so, I mean, Lynn, I don't know if you have anything um, you want to add. I guess, the last thing I sort of want to end on for everyone watching or that will watch in the future, because this will still be available for people to tune into and ask questions to, and I'll go back and look at the chat. But I do want to sort of ask, how can you all be the most helped? I think, we've talked about some other resources that people can go to, and I'll make sure that the link, is available for people to take a look at your website and find out more about your organization if they do need help too. But I sort of wanted to, see what are the ways right now, if people are fortunate enough that they can assist you all. What are the best ways right now for people to offer that?
I think the things that come to mind mostly right now are donations of money, and I know people are finding it hard right now. We're just entering a recession, but a few dollars here, a few dollars there makes a big difference in buying food. But right now, we're faced with placing people who have COVID and who are in our shelter into hotels if they're not well. We do a 5-day stint there, and I don't really want to broadcast this to get a whole load of people here going into a hotel for a period of time. But if they're sick and they're homeless, then they need to be taken care of, and that's a shortfall that we have in our budget this year. That's a big one. The clothing one is enormous for us during this next 10 weeks that we have as shelter site. And then, of course, if people want to volunteer, or even if they've got community hours, I mean, a lot of people will come here for community hours. If they've got a speeding ticket or something and they have to do community hours, send them on. We can absolutely use people.
That's great to know, and I can put that in, the chat in the article as well, just so people know, what you all are needing. Because people do bring some things into the shelter. They bring, pantry goods and things like that. But obviously, there are many more items that people need, especially in the winter months, especially with your shelter.
Hygiene kits are a big one,
Hmm.
for wash, other one, and just the basics, face cloth and toothpaste, toothbrush. They're smaller things that maybe some people can manage. Kids, Girl Scout troops do different things for us, or everybody can provide something. We've had little kids come out, 6-year-olds that have come out and planted in our garden at a veterans house. So there's always a little project for somebody to do. So yeah, please do. And we do a cookout for them, for the veterans and for the people that come and volunteer. So we try and make it fun for them when they come to us best we can.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's, something for this winter, especially. Hopefully, people will get out and volunteer and offer
Good.
that assistance. And hopefully, you all do get the need met at some point, whether it's with housing or with availability for beds and items. But I guess we'll see what happens with, inflation and the housing and everything.
There are landlords out there, or people that own homes out there with 1 bedroom or 2 or 3 bedroom. Call us, and we can maybe use it for our Can Link program, or we can certainly put out to our people that are in need, that are looking for housing. So that would be another super resource for us to access.
Absolutely. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if you have anything else, that's really on your heart or your head that you can think of, to share. But I think that, the main part of the chat right now, and I've been monitoring it with questions, has really just been, resources available. But I think, you spoke to that, and people can hopefully figure out, what resources they need in the Hampton Roads area, and we'll get access to that. But if you have anything else you want to share, I just want to give the floor to you.
I just thanks to everybody that's been listening in today. I mean, this is really a great opportunity for us to talk about what we do, and we're not just the Port Shelter. We're several other programs as well that support the port people or the homeless people across the peninsula. And if we can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to call. I'm sure you've got my number, Sarah.
Yes.
For the so just call us and we'll help the best we can.
Absolutely. And I think, this is a benefit to the community chat that we can have time, to talk about some of the resources and some of the issues that, our community is facing in Hampton Roads, and, offer hopefully some assistance. And, Lynn and I, before the feed got started, talked about, we could talk for hours about, the resources that Link offers. So I wouldn't hesitate for people to, look online, to reach out, I guess, to their city to see, where they might fit in, to get resources for the next year.
Absolutely.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone that's watching. Again, this will be available on wavy.com, YouTube, and Facebook to watch later, so people can tune in as they are available in their day. But Lynn, thank you so much, and I think we'll probably stay in touch. And then if anyone has questions in the chat that isn't watching this live, please go ahead and write them in there. And if we do have information or I can't send you in the right place, I will, and I'll look through that and respond as I can. So thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.